Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
It's time for the Bonnie Sher Show, a whirlwind of wit, wisdom, celebrity, and the boomer life. With a little bit of this and a lot of that and so much more you don't want to miss, here's Bonnie.
Well, hello and welcome to my new friends and old from near and afar. I'm your host. I'm Bonnie Sher, and I'm here to guide you through the worlds of entertainment, the great boomer life, pretty great, and type 1 diabetes. So thank you for tuning in, and I want you to feel free to share your thoughts. You can call in to 1-323-843-2826, or you can tweet the hashtag, which is #BSHER radio. Before we get this show on the road, I'd really like to acknowledge jazz great and Grammy-winning Wayne Cobbin for our super duper theme song. And of course, Corey Bowen of Crown and Anchor Jewelry. You can follow Corey on Twitter at Corey Bowen, BOAN, for more information on the pieces they allow me to wear in exchange for this promotional message. You can always hit me up also, and I can connect you with Corey if you have a desire to remake some of your jewelry or have a new design made just for you. When we come back, the multi-talented producer, director, well, the list goes on, Rick McKay. Back in 30 seconds.
Your life story is more than the things you do. It's a story built on the moments you make today and the impact you have on others. How big is your story going to be? Live your legend.
Okay, well, I have with me now the wonderfully talented Rick McKay. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Bonnie.
For taking the time to come on and have a schmooze with me. Gosh, we have lots to talk about. So I'm going to toss this over to you. What's doing in New York? What are you working on?
I'm working on the sequel to my film Broadway, The Golden Age, which was a huge success. And this one, like the first film, has 100 stars talking about coming to New York City and breaking into the business and changing the world, basically. This one has everybody from Robert Redford and Diana Rigg and Jane Fonda and Angela Lansbury and Vanessa Redgrave, Alec Baldwin, Glenn Close, Liza Minnelli, Alan Cumming, Shirley MacLaine. I mean, it's everybody. Eli Wallach, Peter Gallagher, B.B. Newirth. It's all these people who started in the 60s and 70s and really changed the whole entertainment industry. And it's then all talking about struggling, breaking into the business, and kind of revolutionizing Broadway, which then in turn revolutionized film and the business as we know it. And it's so inspiring, Bonnie. All of them talking about the struggle to break into the business. And it's a sequel from the first film, which I'm sure you probably know, played in theaters all over the country and was one of the most successful, shows that PBS ever had after that, Broadway, the Golden Age, which was, Sondheim and Hal Prince and Angela Lansbury and Carol Lawrence and Carol Channing and John Raitt and all the generation before that, in the 40s and 50s, talking about, everything from West Side Story and Oklahoma and all of that generation of shows. But this one has the next generation of shows. Everyone talking about creating Chicago and Pippin and that generation of shows and how they created them and how they struggled, how they created Chorus Line, how it started as a little show downtown in the public theater, a little show with no costumes, no intermission, no stars, no nothing, while Bob Fosse was uptown with his wife Gwen Verdon and Kendra Nebb and Cheetah Rivera with the Sure Thing, that was going to be the big smash show that season, Chicago. And downtown was Michael Bennett with no stars, no costumes, no sets, no nothing, little theater, the Newman, 199 seats. You remember, you were in New York then, and you certainly were, and how it revolutionized the business. How suddenly in that one season in 1975, that little show downtown suddenly took off, came uptown, won every Tony Award, and became the smash hit show.
I have
little show that
goosebumps
could.
just thinking back to those days. I mean, clearly, I've been a show lover, Broadway lover, the majority of my life. But, in my teens, when we had shows like you're talking about, is really when I attached myself to that dream too. I'm a Broadway baby. I love it. I was reading and, your work as a producer across the board has been honored, and you've been honored. I mean, I'm looking at one now where you were honored by Sundance as one of PBS Producers Academy. I mean, how does it get? And of course, when you produced and were the cinematographer for Elaine Stritch's At Liberty on PBS, fabulous. I can watch that 164 times. Or 160.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Bonnie. Well, as you know, I made a living as a singer for 20 years, and this is not what I set out to do, but I found, Bonnie, that nobody was archiving this. I mean, thank God we have Turner Classic Movies. So
right.
A young person can stumble on Turner Classic Movies and discover these old films and fall in love with them. But you can find a cast album and find you love theater, but you can't stumble on an old show. And you can suddenly maybe find you like the music, but you can't go and sit at the knee of one of these Broadway legends and say, what was it like? Because you find out, maybe you discover Damn Yankees and you think, what would it be like to talk to Gwen Verdon? Well, guess what? It's too late.
Right.
So I decided that someone had to do this before it was too late. And when I was at PBS producing, I decided that I would do it on my own, and I charged a camera. And, I had a crew with me all the time at PBS, and when I was working at Biography, I always had a crew. I just had a clipboard, and I said, you go over there, you with the camera, you with the lights, you my PA, you carry the bags, everyone do this, do that, and I'll just do the interview, and you're my minions. I had an editor, I had assistant editors, but when I did this on my own, I thought I'll just do the demo, I'll show it to them, and they'll throw lots of money at me. And instead they said to me, Rick, these are all old people. Our demographic is dying. We can't do this with all old people. Why do you have Gwen Verdon? Why don't you get Julia Roberts, someone young like that, to talk about Bob Fosse? And I looked at them awestruck, and I said, Well, because she doesn't dance. At that point, she'd never been on Broadway. I said, Gwen Verdon is not only married to Bob Fosse, she was his inspiration because she danced before he did. You know what I mean? She worked with Jack Cole. She has 4 Tonys of her own.
We need to take a break now, and when we return, I want to hear more about that. I also want to know about who's influenced you into I know as a musical type person and a performer, and I'm not saying anything that I haven't already said to you. When I first saw your cabaret show in New York at a time that I was recruiting talent for Hearts and Voices, I remember saying to you that night before I left the club that yours was undeniably the best cabaret show, hands down, that I had ever seen. And it seems like everything you do just perfectly perfect. So I'm going to shut up now for a minute, and I'm going to be back in 60 seconds.
Since when did experience
Well, I'm
become
just going to
something
soak that up,
I
Bonnie.
say we
Thank
own
you,
it.
honey.
Lose all
Be
that
soaked.
negativity. Just let it go. It's just bad energy. Oh, and lose those terrible black balloons they give you on your 50th. What's up with that?
Hey, we hear you. That's why our members love AARP the magazine. It celebrates you with fun and provocative content, from lifestyle and entertainment to in-depth reporting. And it's just one of the great benefits of membership. If you don't think this is right for me when you think AARP, then you don't know ARP. Get to know us at aarp.org/possibilities.
To be at peace with myself is the most prominent thing, and I am at peace with myself. I didn't deal this deck, I'm just playing the game. That's all. That's it. Meals on Wheels has given me a mode of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise. And making sure they get the nutrition that I need, and it's a balanced meal. My name is Maurice McGriff. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
You are tuned to the Bonnie Sher Show, Boomer Life, and we have the pleasure of talking with Rick McKay. So join the conversation. Call us 1-323-843-2826 or tweet the hashtag #BShareRadio. So let's pick up where we left off before. Rick, talk to me a little more about, we know that you've completed the first part of your trilogy. Can you tell us more about what we have to look forward to?
Well, what we have to look forward to in the new film is more of the passion of these people. I mean, I learned from them. Like the first film, I learned about out-of-town previews, and it taught me how to take my film to film festivals as if they were out-of-town previews. And I did maybe 20 film festivals, and I won 18 of them, and no one knew that at every film festival I would submit, and then I would change the film before I got to the festival. Because every festival I went to, I'd stand in the back like Moss Hart, walking and pacing, and when I heard seats creak, I'd go home and I'd change the film. So every festival I got to, I hand them the film, and they'd say, "Oh, we already have it when you submitted." And I'd say, "No, there's a glitch in it. So this is the film, I fixed the glitch." But actually, I'd have a whole different film. But see, this time, I learned new things. I learned from Michael Bennett. Because Michael Bennett, the way he put chorus line together, he taught me something, even though he died in the 80s. See, these people that died 35, 40 years ago are teaching me decades later. He taught me, without knowing it, that the more specific you make something, the more universal it becomes. The dancers in that show said, "Michael, no one's going to care about a show about chorus dancers. Why would people care?" But of course, plumbers came to see chorus line and wept. They said, "That's my story. You know, that's my story about, will I have a job tomorrow?" And I realized that that's the way I make my films. I thought, Michael Bennett's teaching me. If I tell these people's stories so specifically, then everyone in the world's going to care. If I tried to make it the way PBS or HBO or Showtime would give me notes and say, like in the first film, they said, cut out that story about Carol Burnett saying 5 girls pitched in together and bought a dress. No one cares about that. And I said, no, and cut out the stories about people struggling. We want to see musical numbers. And I said, no. If I had this movie when I got off that bus in 1981 in New York starving to death, this might have made the difference for me. And I listened to my heart, And as a result, when Spring Awakening opened up and Harry Hahn, the Playbill writer, interviewed Jonathan, the young star who was nominated for a Tony Award at 21 years old, and they asked him, what did you think about, being this young and having your first opening night? What was it that, you thought about as you're, getting ready to open up on Broadway? And he said, I locked myself in my apartment. This is Jonathan Groff, who's a big star now. And he said, I locked myself in my apartment and I watched Broadway The Golden Age over and over. And they said, really? And he said, yes, that movie inspired me as I was struggling and had no money. And the publicist called me from the show. And this is a show, for young people. And they said, would you like to come and see the show and meet him because he's so inspired by you? So I came to see the show, and I thought, he's nominated for a Tony now. He'll be like, oh, past it. But instead he's waiting outside his dressing room with a copy of the film and a Sharpie, waiting for me to sign it. So excited. And as a result, I get so much mail from young people that are looking for the passion that's in these films today. So as a result, I learn from these generations before they inspire me to make the films. And as a result, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds constantly write me. We were just last week, Playbill listed 13 films that everyone that loves Broadway must see, and we were the 4th film. Number 4 of the films in history that are made. And a site called theaternerd.com listed 9 films that everyone that loves Broadway must see, and we were the number 1 film. And on Facebook, I thanked both sites. And the guy that's the head of theaternerd.com wrote back right away and said, thank you, Mr. McKay. You're the reason I'm a theater historian, because I saw Broadway The Golden Age. And it meant so much to me that I'm inspired by when I make the film, by the generations before. And then in turn, whenever I go to a Broadway opening or to the theater and I meet people that are in shows now that are young, they say to me, oh my God, I love your movie. And I say, it's not the PBS, Broadway the American Musicals. They say, oh, no. You don't understand. When I was in high school, I skipped school to go to the Angelica or to go to the Sutton. I skipped school and came in from Long Island to see your show, to see your movie. I played hooky to see your movie.
Let me ask you this, Rick. For those who have not seen the part 1, is that on YouTube? Is there any way people can see that work?
Oh, yeah, you can just go to Amazon. It's never gone out of print. In fact, it's on sale right now for $9.99 at Amazon, Broadway The Golden Age. It's never gone out of print. I mean, I would say you could go to the store and buy it, but we don't have DVD stores anymore. Tower and all those places have gone out of business.
You're going to see another $9.99 in your cash inbox from me alone. I hope others will follow my...
Honey, I will send you a DVD. You can rent it on Netflix, but I think you can only rent the actual DVD. I don't think you can stream it on Netflix, but you can rent the DVD on Netflix. But I'll send you a copy.
When all I had to do was spin a platter. Now you're already getting me crazy. I can stream, I can download. Sending is a mitzvah, okay?
Well, listen, we love to stream things instantly, but I'll tell you why the DVD is great. It has 2 hours of bonus features, and it also has a 2-hour director's commentary where I dish the whole time. I tell people, watch the movie first, then listen to it with the director's commentary, because I talk all the way through it. And I tell stories about the cast, how I got them, stories about when they came. I mean, it's really a dishy director's commentary. It's a lot of fun. So it's, it's like sitting on the couch with me as I'm going, this one.
You can only imagine.
Pardon me?
Okay, now, before I let you go, would you please tell our audience how they can follow you and know what's going on in your life? Is there a Facebook, Twitter, like that stuff?
Absolutely. First of all, our website is www.com, and it's very easy, BroadwayTheMovie.com. No spaces, no underscores, anything. It's just BroadwayTheMovie.com. And I also want your audience to know that this movie is made completely with donations and with my own money and with my generous producers who go out and knock on doors and beg. We don't have big government grants or anything like that, just donations. I mean, no one gives us, these $100,000 grants from, well, there is no National Endowment of the Arts kind of grants anymore.
Yes.
And I'm the person who literally, Bonnie, I write the film, I shoot the film myself, I edit the film myself, I do the lighting myself. I mean, when Angela Lansbury or Liza Minnelli or anyone does the film, I either go to their house or they come to mine, and I'm alone. I set up the equipment myself, I mic them, I do the sound, I do the lights, I do everything. At the premiere, B. Arthur leaned over to me and said, "Honey, we all thought you were crazy and just had a home movie camera. We never would have told you all this shit if we actually thought you'd pull it off." And I said, "Well, I knew I'd pull it off, B." And she goes, "Well, we didn't." But that's why the film's so good, is because it's intimate. When I was at PBS and when I was at A&E and Biography, there was always a crew of minimum of 6 people. So people are cautious, You're knocking things over in their house, and you're in and out in an hour because you got to do 3 to 4 people in interviews a day to make it worth the money. But I do one person a day, and it's me alone because it's important. It's history. When I did Bjork Lee from Chorus Line, she almost cried at the end. I said, "Is there anything I didn't ask you?" And she said, "No, let me out of here." It'd been 5 hours. But last week she posted on Facebook when she saw this thing I put on YouTube about a chorus line, how it all began, because it's a half hour long and it'll never fit in my film. So I thought I should share it, on YouTube. And it's wonderful. It's called The Birth of a Chorus Line. And I'm not greedy. I thought this should be shared with the world since it won't fit in my film. And she almost died when she saw it. So she posted on Facebook.
As far
Everyone
as I
should.
remember, you're the opposite of greedy. You are giving of yourself with your talent, with your mind, with your friendship. And no, you don't have to send the check.
You're too kind.
Well,
I just think that
I'm
this
crazy
history
like
should be
that.
shared. And if people go to our website, BroadwayTheMovie.com, there's a button that they can click called Donate. And there's a link there, and it's very easy. We're under a 501c3, umbrella, and they can do it with a credit card. They can give as little as they like, or they can give more, or they don't have to give anything, but they can always find out what's going on with the film. Or, they can, I'm on Facebook, Rick McKay, or, they can follow me on Twitter. I'm just at RCKMCK, I think. Yeah, RCKMCK. Just think of Vanna White. I'm Rick McKay with no vowels, I didn't get any vowels.
Well, you got everything else, my dear. Listen, thank you so much for being here today, Rick. It was a true pleasure. And as we go to break...
Thank you, Bonnie. I love you.
I love you too, sweetheart. And as we go to break, I'd like to acknowledge the important work of the Diabetes Research Institute. And I encourage you to support their efforts. There are millions of children and adults with diabetes, and we dream of a cure for this devastating disease. We do dream of living without the painful finger pricks, the insulin rejections, and the risk of the life-threatening complications. Currently, the scientists at the Diabetes Research Institutes are working hard to make that dream a reality by finding a biological cure. They are advancing research to patients and they're changing lives. Please visit them online at diabetesresearch.org. Our video clip of the day is coming up next, right after this 30-second ad. See the other side.
Can be living in anyone. Type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas doesn't produce insulin. It's not caused by your diet, it's not caused by anything you did.
Type 1 diabetes can be very serious.
Blindness, amputation.
Learn more about type 1 diabetes.
Help support JDRF finding a cure.
T1D looks like my brother.
T1D looks like a friend.
Type 1 diabetes looks like me.
I remember seeing the New York Times theater section in 1950. You'd say all of these shows couldn't have been running at the same time. Not South Pacific and A Streetcar Named Desire and Death of a Salesman. They couldn't be all on Broadway at the same time in the same year. Yeah, they were.
It was the best of all worlds.
It was just wonderful. It was just everything I had dreamed that it would be.
If I could have lived in any time, probably the 40s and the 50s.
There never will be a substitute for live theater.
In America, we had the American theater, which is the only thing we invented except jazz.
Four of us bought a dress.
And nobody ever had any money.
I felt great. I can eat meat for the first time since I'm 6. I never had any money.
4 of us living in one room, it was what you did.
One thing I was determined, though. I was determined that I was not going home. Never. I did go to Juilliard. I did study opera, but it interfered with my nightclubbing.
It was a dream come true.
Carol Haney fell and hurt her knee.
And I got to the theater 10 minutes before the curtain was supposed to go up, and they said, "You're on."
The only time dancing was truly fulfilling was in shows that Bob Fosse was the director.
The theater is live.
It's very rare that you see something which is just mesmeric.
Oh, God. Marlon is a work of art.
I say Marlon broke the mold.
I just thought that that's the way it always was. I didn't realize that those years were the golden age of Broadway, and it'll never be the same again, ever.
Are you rolling?
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Give my regards to Broadway.
There's a whole new generation in the world. They should see great theater. This is, Beethoven, this is Bach, this is something, for Christ's sake.
Be there. Whisper of how I'm yearning to mingle with the old-time throng. Give my...
Welcome back to the Bonnie Sher Show, Boomer Life. My co-host for this segment is my friend and the very savvy diabetic, Joanne Milo, who is a member of the T1D, of course, type 1 diabetes, community from the great state of California. Welcome back, Joanne.
Hey there.
Hey, buddy, as it was.
Hey,
Joanne, thank you for taking the time to come back and chat with me again today. For those who don't know your story, and although you've been on with me a couple times, you never know, share a little bit of your story, and then I have another question for you after that.
Oh, I can't wait. I was born in New York, and a little bit before my 11th birthday, we were on vacation in Puerto Rico, and I couldn't stop drinking Coke. I was dying of thirst, and got home. They took me to the hospital in San Juan. It was so dirty, I wouldn't give them a urine sample. So they just sent me home. A few days after my 11th birthday, I couldn't make it to school, and my mom took me to my pediatrician, and it was around 5:30 in the afternoon, and that's where I got the diagnosis. And I remember in his office. I remember the time of day, the weather, it was middle of winter, it was January 25th, and I was not hospitalized. My mom learned how to give me shots all through the night. She gave me shots. I was peeing on test tape. You remember test tape?
Yeah.
Strip that turned green if you were spilling sugar. And that began the journey of living with type 1 diabetes. At the time called diabetes mellitus, I think, and then it became juvenile diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Or sugar diabetes. That was one of my favorites.
Right. Sugar
you got sugar? You got sugar diabetes? Well, no, I have the Scotch variety.
That's right. Well, really, the question is, do you have the good kind or the bad kind? Bonnie?
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah.
So, my parents got involved with American Diabetes Association doing, they did these drives to diagnose kids. I don't quite remember much about that, but as soon as JDF started,
Okay. Well, Joanne, let me ask you this, if I might. What T1D issue would you like to bring to our community today?
Oh, and we have
happens that I already know, but I always ask the question.
Yes.
Because it's on my script.
Right. There are so many, and but having just gotten another diagnosis of another complication this past week by a doctor, as best I can say, ignorant of diabetes. I'd like to talk about how you cope with this disease and how you cope with medical disease. I can best describe how I felt after that doctor's appointment, after I started dying. I felt crushed, and I started, and still, it just took me all the way back to something. There is no cure.
Mm-hmm.
And I could barely breathe for that day. I was just so rattled. And it's, how do you deal in the community? How do you deal in the doctor's community? How do you feel okay? You don't feel okay.
Right. And it can also be, how do you feel this hour? I've had those too.
Oh, I got that one run down right now for no reason. My blood sugar's skyrocketing.
You're so excited to talk.
Yes, and you're not stressing me, but it's running.
You haven't talked to my kids yet.
I had a doctor's appointment yesterday morning, and I was on my way out the door, and I thought, my CGM is not reading, and I took a finger stick, and it was 400, and apparently my sight failed. And it's always when you don't have time, don't expect it.
Of course.
And how do you keep on going? How do you feel good? And you posted something on your website this week about, if I don't tell you I'm feeling great, if I tell you I'm fine, it doesn't mean that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so true. I just read it out loud.
Well, there's no doubt from anybody who shares our T1D-ness that, you'll pardon the expression, it's a real pisser. And, I'm facing now my 50th year of being a diabetic. And I went along fairly jaunty jolly for the first 30 years. And the last 20 years have not been so jaunty nor so jolly, other than doing this show. It's a tough life. When I hear people say, oh, well, all you have to do is shoot up some insulin and stay away from Coca-Cola. Well, yeah, but that's like the littlest bit of what we need to deal with. And I don't really hear too many people talking about that. I read it on Facebook and some of, especially the women's diabetes groups. But as we come along to some of the complications which can befall us. And into those rooms also, I find that I don't feel as alone in it. But on the other hand, do I feel better about it? Not so much.
That's exactly right. I am grateful for the Facebook pages or groups. You turned me on to one this week, and yeah, I don't feel as alone, and I feel like I can ask questions about what I don't understand, and I'll get some very straight answers without people telling me how their uncle had their leg cut off. And but what I find, I run a support group in Orange County, California, and we have a lot of people that are on the mailing list. And when you put out a request saying, "Hey, could you tell me about this complication?" or "Could you private message me?" a lot of people don't even want to. They don't want to touch it because they haven't gotten that problem yet. And it's almost like if they talk about it, you're going to get jinxed. Yeah, very few people that are really able to step up, and I think an awful lot of us live in as much denial as we can. I certainly did that for years about having to be hospitalized. I just stayed away from hospitals. I would have done anything not to go to the hospital until I got appendicitis.
Yeah, they're not safe places for diabetics, especially. They don't seem to know what to do with us.
And they don't care because that's not usually what they're treating. And I understand that, but there has to be some basic protocol that they don't overstep certain bounds. They're busy, and I understand that it's not a good excuse, but I get it. Which means, as we talk, you need an advocate. You need somebody sitting on your, an angel on your shoulder.
Absolutely. And you write about that on your blog too, on your website, and I think that's vitally important.
I think, and I am working on just some sort of, I don't know, brochure or pamphlet that you could give to people that surround you, that are your friends, and say, look, if I am ever in trouble and I call you, this is exactly what I need you to do.
Right.
They don't want to be taught ahead of time because they'll forget.
Right.
It isn't in their world. We know how to do insulin pump changes and all that stuff, but they don't. And if you teach them once, they'll forget. But some sort of crib sheet that says, look, if I call you, it's because I have a problem, and here's what I need you to do. Maybe
and I might not be able to tell you all this in the crux of it, so I want you to know now. That's brilliant.
Well, thank you. It needs to be a cheat sheet. It needs to be easy, and we're beginning in Orange County to try to figure out a list of who you can call, who could refer you to get the information you need. And it's got to be throughout this country and probably worldwide, but who do you call, speak to, son, call, whatever? You've authorized, say, look, don't give her cortisone in the IV. Don't give her glucose in the IV. Make sure you check her blood sugar and let her leave her CGM in. And it's got to be someone who can speak up. Really, well, think about that, and I'd love your input on that, or anybody who's listening. Please send me an email. I've got a email address right now just for this called advocate@thesavvydiabetic.com. I'm just trying to figure it out. But I think we need.
Well, I'm going to send you something too, and it's something which I prepared after having been taken out of my home by the EMS and hospitalized. And it's a sheet of what you need to know before you go to the hospital, because you cannot depend on them. And I keep one taped on the inside of my front door so that anybody who comes in my house can see it.
I saw a picture of it. It's excellent. I've got that in my book. It's what you need if you have to go to the hospital, what documents you need and put it on a thumb drive and make a copy of it and make someone else have a copy of it.
2 other people, because sometimes you can't reach the one you thought you would.
The other thing I learned in one of my hospitalizations is you can give them a list of the medications you take, but you should identify those that are essential. I take magnesium, and a lot of diabetics have magnesium issues, and the hospitals see that as a supplement, and they won't add that because it's not. You take that away from someone who needs it, and they go into muscle seizures.
Yeah, I use it also.
So yeah,
they take everything away from me,
but you need to say what is critical and when you take it, so that they don't decide when you get it. And then your advocate can talk to the pharmacy rep to make sure it happens. It's a whole big thing, but you just.
Well, it's preventive. Don't screw with me. I got enough problems. Here's what we really do.
And for anybody who's listening who is doing really, really well, and that's great, and has not much complication other than diabetes, you could still break a leg and end up in the ER.
Yes, you could.
The minute you end up in an ER, you lose a degree of control, and if you have diabetes, you need to get that managed. So it's not just those of us who've lived long enough and developed problems. It's anyone who's a type 1.
Absolutely.
It's time critical, and it's and I'm not going to fight the fact that you are out of control. It's just the way it is. But what does it take to protect ourselves?
Well, Joanne, as always, you are my favorite savvy diabetic. You are, my dear. And would you please let our listeners and viewers know how they can reach you? Tell us about your website.
You betcha.
Okay.
My website is thesavvydiabetic.com, and my email address is joanne@thesavvydiabetic.com. I'm on Facebook as The Savvy Diabetic, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and I'm out in the community. I answer all comments on my website, and I think it's real important to give feedback in this Diabetes Online community. Just to know that someone's listening, someone hears something, and we do a lot of sharing.
Fabulous. Well, we're going to be following you and learning from you, because I sure am pleased that you're around. And I know that others will appreciate you. I just ate that word. Appreciate you as much as I do.
Thank you, Bob.
And with that, I'd like to add, if any of our fellow type 1s would like to be my co-host for a segment of the show, it's very simple. All you have to do is email me at bonnie@bonniesher.com. Could it be any easier, Joanne? Next up. I do love applause. Next up is our Boomer News, and today's Boomer News comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, and it is entitled "The Economic Impact When Baby Boomers Retire," and I'll be back with views from my soapbox. Back in 60 seconds.
The decision to retire is one of the most important personal financial decisions anyone can make. Well, it turns out that it also has a profound macroeconomic impact that we are only now beginning to appreciate. Economists have known for a long time that as the U.S. population ages, it'll tend to slow down economic growth just because we'll have a smaller workforce as a result. But there's new evidence that suggests there's another impact on the economy that's potentially even more important. Because older workers tend to be the most knowledgeable and the most experienced, when they retire, that hurts the productivity of everybody left behind. And that drags on the economy through productivity growth. These findings come from a new economic research paper that just came out in the last week. The economists looked at all 50 states, they looked at the ones that aged faster, and they found that in those states, economic growth slowed more. About a third of the slowdown was because their workforce wasn't growing as quickly, but the rest of it was because the remaining workers just weren't as productive. You know, this kind of makes sense. Older workers aren't just the ones who are most experienced and capable, they also tend to make the people around them more capable and more confident and knowledgeable about how to do their jobs. If you look around the country right now, there are employers from coast to coast grappling with the fact that some of their most experienced employees are now coming up on retirement, and they're very worried about how to replace them. There's a lot of sort of tribal knowledge that you acquire on the job that you cannot simply teach in college. The country as a whole needs to come to grips with this, because if it doesn't, it's facing a double whammy from the aging of the population. This, I think, adds an extra impetus to a lot of the discussion now that we should do more to extend retirement ages, both in private pensions and in Social Security.
And now it's time for my views from the soapbox. You know, my take on who got it right and who should really be ashamed. So let's start with the shout out to 20-year-old Simone Askew, who was the very first Black woman ever to lead the West Point Cadets. Brava! You can read about it because the AP has reported on it. Next is my shout down. And this just blows me away. My shout down is to the states which have introduced bills to protect drivers who run over protesters. This has been reported by CNN. As yet, however, none have been enacted. Let's make sure they're not. Before I say goodbye, I'd like to thank my guests today, the marvelous Rick McKay and my very savvy diabetic Joanne Milo. And that's our show, and I hope you'll return next week for another 50-minute trip through the land of Bonnie, boomers, and the T1D community. Until then, please visit BonnieSher.com, follow the #1 Bonnie Sher on Twitter, and like the Bonnie Sings Lena, Lena, Facebook fan page. Not the least of it is that many of you are aware of the special role that the late Sammy Davis Jr. played in my career. He was my mentor, and he was also my friend. So I like to end this show with a wink and a nod to you, Mr. D. See you next week.